you, Isaiah. Good morning, everyone. Morning. I was noticing the front of our bulletins here. If you have your bulletin, that's a really neat picture. Did you all see this? And the bulletin on the back, it says it's a comet over northern Saskatchewan, Canada. That's a great picture. I love, of course, the scripture, that's an old grain elevator. I don't think they make them like that anymore, but they're all encased in wood. I've seen some of those in my travels. It's just an icon and then the prairie, of course, there with the mountains behind. It's just a great iconic picture of a rural part of our world, and just a neat picture. It's a comet in the air there. The Lord delivered me from all my fears, and I'm reminded as we look at the night sky in that picture, the power of God. And we mentioned last week about just the distances between galaxies and stars, and God put them there, and He has plenty of power for all of our fears and all of our needs. What a great picture. Anyway, thought I'd draw your attention to that. That blessed me this morning. And I just got to church, right? Many blessings are yet to come. All right, hopefully we receive a wonderful blessing from Sunday school as we look at God's Word this morning. Turn to Luke chapter 8. Luke chapter 8. And we didn't quite finish the study of the encounter with Jesus and this, actually two individuals, but he focuses in on one individual. Two demon-possessed people meet him, Matthew tells us, but Luke doesn't record two, he only records one. It seems Jesus focuses on one of them, and that is the basis of the story that's recorded in Luke 8:26 through 39. We got a half or a little further through this last week. I would like to read it again just to familiarize ourselves, and then we will finish the study of this section and move on to the next. And they arrived, this is after they crossed the Sea of Galilee, and the storm was so bad the disciples were afraid. They crossed the sea, get to the other side, and Gadara is over there. And they arrived in the country of the Gadarenes, or Gadarens, however it's pronounced, which is over against Galilee. And he went forth to the land. There met him out of the city a certain man which had devils long time, and wear no clothes, neither abode in any house, but in the tombs. When he saw Jesus, he cried out and fell down before him, and with a loud voice said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God Most High? I beseech thee, torment me not. For he had commanded the unclean spirit to come out of the man, for ofttimes it had caught him. And he was kept bound with chains and in fetters, and he brake the bands and was driven of the devil into the wilderness. And Jesus asked him, saying, What is thy name? And he said, Legion, because many devils were entered into him. And they besought him that he would not command them to go out into the deep. And there was there an herd of many swine feeding on the mountain, and they besought him that he would suffer them to enter into them, and he suffered them. Then went the devils out of the man and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the lake and were choked. When they that fed them saw what was done, they fled and went and told it in the city and in the country. Then they that went out to see what was done and came to Jesus and found the man out of whom the devils were departed sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. They also which saw it told them by what means he that was possessed of the devils was healed. Then the whole multitude of the country of the Gadarenes round about besought him to depart from them, for they were taken with great fear, and he went up into the ship and returned back again. Now the man out of whom the devils were departed besought him that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, Return to thine own house, and show how great things God hath done unto thee. And he went his way and published throughout the whole city how great things Jesus had done unto him. Wonderful story here of a man who was rescued by Jesus, who was truly hopeless. And we kind of recounted some of his hopeless condition last week. We had 5 points here to outline the passage: his condition, his controller, his champion, his countrymen, and his calling. We got through the first 3. His condition, certainly he was demon-possessed. We talked about moral destruction, spiritual destruction. We gathered these things from the story. We talked about physical destruction. He was cutting himself. He was breaking chains, and certainly there were scars from when he broke the chains. We talked about social destruction. He'd been separated from his family. Jesus, after he is healed, says, Go back to your family. So the man had a family somewhere along the line, and he was separated from them, separated from the townspeople. He was a real mess. He was emotionally destroyed. He went around crying. He cried out. Mark 5:5 tells us that. We cross-referenced some other passages. And he was outside of society. Satan was controlling him. There was a legion. The demon who spoke for the other demons said, "We are legion." We mentioned last week that during Augustus' time, it seems to have been a legion, it's a military term, consisted of 6,826 men, 6,100 foot soldiers, 726 horsemen. It seems at least there were 2,000 demons in the man, because 2,000 swine went down over the hill and died off of a cliff. Now, if you can just imagine how bad off you'd be if you had 2,000 demons inside of you, you can imagine how difficult a case this man was in. But Jesus said, "Come out of them." Jesus spoke, and they responded to Jesus. They asked to go in the pigs. We asked, why did they go in the pigs? Not sure, but a couple things we did mention. It proved that there were actually demons in the man and that they exited. It also showed where the demons went and demonstrated their destructive power. There could be other answers and further discussion with that. Many questions come to mind as we think about this story. But Jesus was his champion, his savior, and he rescued him from that destructive case. Fourthly, as we continue on in our study here, his countrymen, the fourth C, his countrymen. Now, how did they respond? And in verses 35 through 37, let me start at verse 34. When they that fed them saw it was done, they fled and went and told it in the city and in the country. So these are employees feeding the sheep on the hillside, and they're just standing around. I don't know how close they were, but you can imagine the scene, and maybe I'm taking some license, I'm not sure, but let's say Jesus is over there, and I see something going on over there, and Jesus is talking to this demon-possessed guy, and I'm feeding the pigs, and all of a sudden my pigs just take off down the hill and drown themselves in the Sea of Galilee. Now, as a farmer, that's a real problem, right? But all these pigs take off. It's like, what in the world just happened? And so these employees run into town and tell everybody in town, my goodness, something like this happened. And so all the townspeople come back out, verse 35, then they went out to see what was done and came to Jesus and found the man out of whom the devils were departed, sitting at the feet of Jesus, clothed and in his right mind. And what's their response? They were afraid. They also which saw it told them by what means he that was possessed of the devils was healed. Somehow, maybe they were closer and could see it. I guess my story might not have been quite accurate there. Then the whole country, the multitude of the country, the Gadarenes round about besought him to depart from them, for they were taken with great fear, and they went up into the ship. He went up in the ship and returned back again. The Greek word here in verse 35 for fear is phobio. It means to put to flight by terrifying, to scare away. This wasn't that they were just, what's going on here? No, they were terrified. That's the word. To scare away, to flee, to be struck with fear, to be seized with alarm. The same word used to the disciples in the boat in just a few verses back, Luke 8:25. They were afraid. They had fear. They were seized with fear. Now, why is that? This man is sitting there in his right mind. He's clothed. He's well. Why are they afraid of Jesus? And why are they afraid of what just happened? And the short answer is, I'm not exactly sure. We can surmise a few things, but the power of God is a fearful thing to behold, even though it heals this man. Now put yourselves in their shoes. You're living in this country. You know this guy. Remember I talked about my neighbor Ed Wild last week? Who was here last week? A few of you were, not many, but because it was so cold. By the way, it's like 40 degrees warmer today or so. Isn't that great? Then last Sunday, I told about my neighbor Ed Wild last week. Literally his name, Ed Wild. He was my neighbor when I was a kid growing up. He was a crazy guy, kind of. He lived right down the road from us. He lived down the dirt road, and I had an interaction with him that was not super pleasant. He had threatened my neighbor to kill him. Not me, but my neighbor. And so we all knew who Ed Wild was, and you don't go near Ed Wild's property, right? Well, all these people knew who this demon-possessed man was, and Matthew records, I think it is, that everyone was afraid of him. They wouldn't go near him. Kids don't go over near that guy. And all of a sudden, this man is healed. And this stranger just got off this boat and healed him. And they can't put it together. And they're terrified. What happened? Suddenly a stranger shows up, and this man is completely healed, and they couldn't even control him with chains. They were terrified at the presence and power of Jesus and his ability to remove the demons. They were fearful of Jesus' superior power. and they were troubled by a display they could not understand. Now, it's very possible that also the loss of the swine, that's an explanation as well. The economic loss of that is a real problem, and they wanted Jesus out of there. But why didn't they ask more questions, and why weren't they patient? Say, wow, this is really actually a good thing. Let's see what happened. What would you do? Put yourself exactly in their shoes, not looking back 2,000 years later, but what would you do? Remember when Saul got saved, became Paul. He came back and wanted to join in with the Christians, and they said, no way, no way. We don't believe God changed your heart. But who helped him? Who was it? Yes, Ananias helped him after the road to Damascus, but Barnabas was the one that said, hey, Christians, this guy has been changed. Christ has entered his heart. There's a real change in his life. Barnabas brought him in. And so I think the people were just terrified of what happened here. I acknowledge they were shocked at what they saw and did not understand who Jesus was at this point. But you'd think they would be interested in finding out more information. Sadly, Jesus does get in the boat and leave the country. Look at verse 38 and 39. This is the final word in our outline, his calling, the demon-possessed man's calling. Verse 38, now the man of whom the devils were departed besought him that he might be with him, but Jesus sent him away, saying, return to thine own house and show how great things God hath done unto thee. And he went his way and published throughout the whole city how great things Jesus had done unto him. This man wanted to go with Jesus wherever he went. Jesus had rescued him, delivered him, not only delivered from demons, but from his sin, I believe, and he was saved. Jesus was now his Lord and Savior, and he said, I want to go with you, Jesus. What a radical change from a hopeless man to a rescued sinner, forever in heaven with Christ. I believe we'll see this man in heaven. Instead, Jesus wanted him to tell his countrymen what had happened and for him to be a witness of the delivering power of Christ, and that's what he did. It says he went his way and published throughout the whole city how great things Jesus had done unto him. Mark records that all men did marvel at what this man said about Christ. Now, in this ending of the story, I believe there's also still a wonderful example of the grace of Christ. The people of Gadara rejected Christ, but Christ did not reject them. He left them a witness. He could have taken this man and taken everything away. He said, you stay behind because they'll listen to you. They don't want me. They want you. They don't want me. What a measure of the grace of Christ to leave this man behind, and even in rejection, Christ is gracious to these people. I have to think that many responded to the message and believed in Jesus. I have a few conclusions and thoughts as we close here in relation to the entire study of this section. Number one, and this is very important, Jesus has absolute authority over the demonic world. There's no question about that. We talked about that a little bit last week. Do you and I have any power over demons or over Satan? And we mentioned the lesson point to make last week. Remember, Daniel prayed. If you weren't here, we mentioned last week. Daniel prayed, and the answer came how many days later? 21 days later. 3 weeks later, Gabriel said, I couldn't get here with the answer because of the spirit world, and Michael had to come and help me get through. And if Gabriel can't make it through the demonic spirit world, how do we think we're going to overcome them? Ephesians 2 tells us that we are dead in trespasses and sins before we're saved. We are controlled by the prince of the power of the air. It's only Jesus who can deliver us and nothing else. I think that demonstrates the power of Christ in salvation. Secondly, never open up yourself to the satanic world. Never open up yourself to the satanic world. How these demons were able to enter into this man and how many, we do not know. But their destructive power certainly is obvious. Thirdly, I think it's important to note this. Jesus sought out this man on purpose to deliver him from the impossible situation. In Luke 8:22, it says, Jesus says to his disciples, let's go to the other side of the lake. There's something over there I got to do. There's a person I have to see. One person. Jesus seeks out individuals. Jesus purposed to go and deliver him. Fourthly, even in rejection, Christ is gracious. The people of the country asked Jesus to leave, and he did. They rejected him, but he did not reject them. He left them a witness. Even as Christ is dying on the cross, what did he say? Forgive them. Forgive them. They don't know what they do. Jesus' demeanor and disposition is to never reject anyone. Fifth, I'll ask you this question. Have you or I pushed Jesus away? He is still the same gracious Savior. He wants to help you in your need. Even if you or I don't realize how desperately you need him, he is still willing to help you. And lastly, God is a God of hope. We run across many hopeless cases in the Gospels. We're going to look at two more in a moment here. God is a God of hope. Romans 15:13. Now the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that you may abound in hope through the power of the Holy Ghost. The God you serve, Jesus Christ, and his Father in heaven, is a God of hope. He doesn't leave us hopeless. What did the psalmist say? Hope in God, for I will yet praise him for the help of his countenance. You may be in a trial today. You may be in a difficult place. Look forward to God's hope. He leads us through the valley of the shadow of death. David said, surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And David had very hopeless seasons, especially when he was running from Saul. What a wonderful story of the rescue of this man. Jesus is a merciful Savior and a wonderful Redeemer for this man. And he is the same person today as he was then. Questions or thoughts or additions? Yes, Stan.
It's never enough to just see. Christ told him to tell. Makes all the difference. Faith is just not seeing. It's experiencing what God is.
Yep. We see that in the next story too, with the woman with the issue of blood. Jesus wanted her to express what actually happened to her. He didn't want her just to experience it and go away and be quiet. He wanted that. That's very good. Important. Someone else. Isaiah.
Just say Christ commands him to return to his house. You mentioned the family. There may be a separation there.
Yeah.
Oftentimes shame and regret, things like that, continue even after being saved, born again, keeps us from going back, thinking people are going to judge me, hold that against me. And we see here Christ reemphasizes that, no, this is reconciliation. This is at the heart of salvation. It's not a hiding from people.
Yeah.
It's a fresh start, but it doesn't
Yes.
mean a complete separation from your past. And so,
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. That's good. Any others? Okay. Oh, Gary.
It seems like maybe a contrast between Christian view of people. That, like you said, there was one person that Christ was interested in helping, and I think that the contrast of the response of all the people in the area wanting him to go may have been because they just didn't really have a concern for that person. They were concerned about, the headlines for them have been that they lost all their income, the economic impact, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess it sort of tells me that I need to assess things maybe differently than I might be inclined to if I listen to the news, or where do I get, my inputs? Do they value people the way Christ does?
That's a good point. Christ is personal and individual. That's a good point, Gary. Appreciate that. All right. Jordan.
You kind of mentioned this, but one thing I thought was really interesting when I was studying the sister passage in Mark
Yep.
is that it specifically says the demons begged Jesus, for this.
Yeah.
And he said yes.
Yep.
The people begged Jesus to leave. He says yes. And then this guy that he just rescued begs him to go with him. And he says no.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? And I think it's just a great picture that when God says no, it's because he's got a better plan. And it's actually being gracious and saying no.
That's a great point. I didn't think of that. He said yes to the bad guys and no to the good guy, right? That's a good point, Jordan. But God's word is final. That's a great point. All right. Let's keep reading in Luke And let's pick up at verse 40. And there are two miracles here, so to speak. They're intertwined. They happen kind of within the same story. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but it's wonderful to study it. Trust the Lord will use it to bless us here. Verse 40, and so Jesus crosses back across the Sea of Galilee. That's what happens, and he arrives on the other side. So it came to pass that when Jesus was returned, it says, this is the people he left behind at verse, somewhere around verse 21, because verse 22, they get in the boat, and they go over, the storm happens, the demon-possessed man happens, Jesus goes back, and the people are still there waiting for him. And it came to pass that when Jesus was returned, the people gladly received him, for they were all waiting for him. And behold, there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue, and he fell down at Jesus' feet and besought him that he would come into his house, for he had only one only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she lay a-dying. But as he went, the people thronged him. And a woman having an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood staunched. And Jesus said, who touched me? When all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? And Jesus said, somebody hath touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. And when the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling, and falling down before him, she declared unto him before all the people for what cause she had touched him, and how she was healed immediately. And he said unto her, Daughter, be of good comfort, thy faith hath made thee whole, go in peace. While he yet spake, there cometh one from the ruler of the synagogue's house, saying to him, Thy daughter is dead, trouble not the master. But when Jesus heard it, he answered him, saying, Fear not, believe only, and she shall be made whole. And when he came into the house, he suffered no man to go in, save Peter and James and John, and the father and mother of the maiden. And all wept and bewailed her. But he said, Weep not, she is not dead, but sleepeth. And they laughed him to scorn, knowing that she was dead. And he put them all out, and took her by the hand, and saying, Maid, arise. And her spirit came again, and she arose straightway, and commanded to give her meat. But her parents were astonished, but he charged them that they should tell no man what was done. So here we have two miracles, two personal individual miracles, kind of intertwined in the same story. And Jesus arrives back on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, and arrives on the shore. The people are waiting for him. They're thronging him, and immediately comes this individual, Jairus. He's the ruler of the synagogue, and he has a problem. His daughter's dying. He wants Jesus to come. And so Jesus starts on his way to go to Jairus' house. He's headed there, right? And all this group of people are following him. And this woman, unknown to everyone else, sneaks up behind him, touches the hem of his garment, and wants to be healed, and she is. And Jesus stops the whole operation and deals with her. And Jairus is standing there, I'm sure, like, come on, right? We've all been that way. Come on, hurry up, right? Maybe you followed a car to church today. Come on, right? Jairus is saying that, I'm sure. Come on, Jesus, my daughter's dying, hurry up. And Jesus takes his time with this woman. And then Jairus' messenger comes and says she's dead. And it's like, oh, Jesus says, no, believe, only believe. And he goes to the house, he heals her. So this story is really intertwined. It's connected in many ways, maybe more than we know, maybe more than Scripture tells us. I'll mention that in a moment here. I'm not reading into Scripture, please. I'm not saying that, but we'll see in a moment. Think about the contrast of these two individuals, Jairus and the woman. One was rich, the other was poor. Jairus certainly was a wealthy man. He's the leader of the synagogue, right? He's a powerful man. He's a well-known man, probably wealthy or well-off enough. In relation to the woman, he certainly is wealthy. She, the Scripture says, has spent everything she has. She has nothing. She spent it all on doctors. One was powerful. He's the ruler of the synagogue. He's well known. Everybody knows who Jairus is. The other is a nobody and despised and an outcast, and we'll see more of that in a moment. One had been battling a disease for a long time. The other had a daughter who apparently fell sick rather quickly and is now dying. And so this woman has been struggling with this health issue for 12 years, and Jairus' daughter, I doubt she was sick for 12 years. It doesn't say, but probably got sick and is going to die. One fell at Jesus' feet and begged for his help. Jairus did. The other snuck up behind him because of fear and shame, hoping in faith to be healed. So they approached Jesus differently. They came from different social statuses. They came from different places in life. And yet Jesus, again, individually dealt with these people, personally dealt with them, personally attended to their needs. Both of these individuals also weighed in the balance in their minds whether Jesus was worth it or not to go see him. And we'll see that also. Is Jesus really worth it? Should I really go pursue him? Both had reason not to. Real good reasons, actually. Was Jesus worth pursuing? We'll see that in a moment. I don't really have an outline for this text. It's really a story, and I want to read it as a story, look at it as a story, and kind of tell it as a story. And so I already saw Jesus arrives back in Israel, and he's there, and Jairus finds his way to Jesus in verse 41. Behold, there came a man, Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue, and fell down at Jesus' feet and besought him that he would come into his house. Jairus, the ruler of the synagogue, comes and kneels at Jesus' feet and says, please, please come rescue my daughter. Not my wife, but my daughter. And she's 12 years old. She's in the flower of her life. She will soon, hopefully, get married and have a family. And Jesus understands that Jairus is beside himself and starts heading his way. Verse 42, but as he went, so once Jairus finished speaking, Jesus said, okay, we're going. Now, I mentioned a moment ago, it took a lot of effort for Jairus to go. He had to weigh in the balance whether he was going to go see Jesus or not. He was the leader of the local synagogue. Is that a problem? Of course it is. He's connected to all the Pharisees, and the Pharisees and Jesus are doing this already at this stage in Luke. He's connected with the Pharisees. He's the leader of the synagogue. He's the religious guy. And so it's going to cost him something to go to Jesus. It's going to create some friction in his relationship with the higher ups that he has to answer to, the bigwigs. Is he going to go to Jesus and get help, or is he going to say, no, I got to keep myself and not get in trouble with these guys? For Jairus, his faith was expressed in sacrifice. He could probably expect at least some criticism and rejection from the Pharisees for making this move, but it didn't matter to him. He was desperate. He believed Jesus could help him and was willing to align himself with Jesus, even if it cost him relationships with others. This is very similar to what Jesus says to all of us. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Whatever form that takes, you want to follow Christ, it's probably going to cost you something. Jesus says it will. It's a cross, and you have to deny yourself. Do I want a relationship with these Pharisees and stay on the ends with the bigwigs of my nation? Or do I want to trust Christ and look for his help in this desperate place? Who's worth more? Who's worth more? So verse 42 here, we see the people thronged him. But as he went, the people thronged him. And so Jesus starts moving. The people are thronging him. He's surrounded by all these people very close. You can just picture it in your mind. And he heads to Jairus' house. And Jairus is no doubt thrilled that Jesus is moving and on his way. And let's get there faster. But then Jesus is interrupted. And we see in verse 43 and 44 here, we meet this woman who had been hemorrhaging blood for 12 years. She comes on the scene, and she has an issue of blood 12 years, which had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any, came behind him and touched the border of his garment, and immediately her issue of blood was staunched. A few background thoughts about this woman. First of all, time. She had had this problem for 12 years. That is a long time for a physical ailment not to go away. That's a long time. Some of us have had ailments longer than that. I understand that. Some have had it much longer than that. That is a long time. And those of you who have had physical ailments for long periods of time understand the suffering this woman experienced. Secondly, not only time but expense. Verse 43, it says here that she had spent all her living upon physicians, neither could be healed of any. Whatever savings she had was gone. This disease had cost her everything. She had no money. She was a pauper. Not only time, expense, but weakness. Regularly losing blood like this would have some physical effects upon her. It would obviously produce fatigue and weakness. anemia. She would get tired very easily. Also, she was probably fearful that if the bleeding increased and she could not stop it, she would die. Death was on her doorstep for 12 years, always. If you're losing blood all the time and that gets worse, you will die. When your blood pressure reaches 0 or close to 0, your life ends. And that was the life she was living for 12 years. That could have happened at any moment. Social effects. She was ceremonially unclean. I didn't even say it right. Ceremonially unclean. There we go. Leviticus 15, we won't turn there, 19 through 27, you can read it. She was ceremonially unclean, and she could not be around people. People could not touch her clothing. They could not touch a couch she sat on. They could not sit on a bed she sat on. They couldn't touch anything she touched, or they were unclean. She could not go to the temple or attend a synagogue. And I mentioned this earlier. It's possible Jairus and this woman knew each other because she couldn't go in the synagogue. I mean, everybody locally goes in the synagogue. That's the center of town. That's the center of worship. But this woman couldn't. I bet Jairus knew who she was. And she was basically an outcast of society. If I could liken something to what she would have been, potentially similar to a leper. Maybe not that bad, but similar. And the issue of blood could not go away. She could not become clean again. She was perpetually unclean. And so this woman approaches Jesus from behind in verse 44 and touched the border of his garment, just the outside edge. Maybe she touched the border because she didn't want to touch him because she would make him unclean. And so she said, maybe, and she actually said that in Matthew 9:21, for she said, we won't turn there, but she said within herself in Matthew 9:21, it says, if I may but touch his garment, I shall be whole. Luke doesn't record that, but Matthew does. That's in her mind. If I can just touch the end of his clothing, probably a tassel or a fringe on the edge of his garment, probably down low. She may have been on the ground or kind of reaching down and touching him. And the word touch there is an interesting word. It's not just touch like that. It's grab a hold of here. The word touch is the Greek word meaning to fasten oneself to adhere, to cling to. She grabbed his garment just like this. She grabbed a hold of it. She didn't just touch it and get away. She grabbed a hold of it, and immediately she was healed. Now, what about her faith? Remember, Jairus had some serious faith. He had a sacrificial faith to get to Jesus. But her faith, what she did was technically illegal. She was not supposed to purposely touch anyone because she was unclean. And if she touched anyone in the crowd, she would make them unclean. But in her desperation and faith in Jesus, she pushed through the crowd to get him. That's why she was hiding. Her great faith is seen in her effort to get to the Savior. She put aside her fear and shame and pushed forward to get to Jesus. Now, her wish came true when she touched Jesus in verse 44. She was immediately healed. And then we see in verse 45, Jesus says, who touched me? And I find this section very interesting. And I think we'll be able to end on this section. Won't finish the story, but we can end here. I think it's a real blessing. Jesus said, who touched me? In verse 45. And let's read there. When all denied, Peter and they that were with him said, Master, the multitude throng thee and press thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? Peter, translation, what Peter's saying, everybody's touching you, Jesus. The whole crowd is around you. Everybody's touching you. How can you know someone touched you? And Jesus explains and says in verse 46, somebody has touched me, for I perceive that virtue is gone out of me. That's why Jesus knew someone touched him. Something happened inside of him, and I think this is instructive. When this woman touched Jesus, virtue went out of him. That is the Greek word dunamis, power. He felt it leave him. To me, that means when Jesus did this for this woman, it was personal to him. He felt it personally. Power left him to personally help this woman. And if I could extend that to you and me, when Jesus extends grace to us in salvation or any other form, it is a personal thing for him to give that to you and to me. That is a gift that God gives us. It's personal. Now, Jesus, because he is God, is fully aware of what is going on, and he knows exactly where his power is going. He knows how much is needed and how it should be applied. Now, verse 47, The woman is hoping she can get away without being noticed. She is hoping to touch his garment, be healed, and escape. Now, Jesus does not let her do that. Wouldn't it be nice just to let her get healed and go away and she'd be okay? I don't think so. I actually think the blessing he gave her by meeting her face to face is greater than the blessing of the healing. I think it's a gift Jesus gave her on top of the healing. I think this interaction is wonderful. I was thinking about it and writing some of these thoughts down yesterday, and it began to really bless me. I want to just mention a few thoughts about this interaction. Jesus says, "Who touched me?" Now, we can't think that Jesus did not know. Of course he knew who it was. His goal was to receive her tenderly, graciously. And so he wants her to volunteer. Who will own up to this? Will anyone own up to the gift of grace I just gave them? That's what he's saying. The person who received it knew, and of course it was her. Will you own up to what I gave you, is what Jesus is saying. And when she realized that she couldn't be hidden, she came forward. Jesus wants her to acknowledge what he had done for her, and then he wants to receive her. He wants her to volunteer ownership of the event. He did not want to point her out, to shame her. Instead, if she voluntarily owned up to it, he would receive her. Now she comes trembling in verse 47. When the woman saw that she was not hid, she came trembling. She's very afraid, probably for a couple reasons. In shame, because she had no right to be there. She was unclean. It should not have been near those people. Probably in fear, because she knows who Jesus is, powerful Son of God. What will happen to me now? I've been found out. Will Jesus take the blessing of healing away? Who knows how many questions were in her mind. And falling down before him, no longer behind him. She is now in front of him, falling down before him, just like Jairus did. Now, Jesus in love and compassion deals with her on a personal level, face to face. His goal is not to destroy her, but to love and restore her. And she found in him the sweetest friend she could ever know. And beyond that, she found in him a Savior. Now, why did Jesus make her face him? Why did not he allow her to escape and remain discreet? I believe he wanted to meet her personally. I believe he wanted to not only see her personally, but he wanted her to see him personally as well. He wanted her to know his love in a personal way, in an intimate way, instead of at a distance. Let me ask you this. If she had walked away and escaped discreetly, she would never have known the fullness of meeting Jesus and having a relationship with him. Can you imagine being this close to Jesus and never meeting him? And the blessing you would have missed if you didn't meet him? For illustration of this, have you ever been in a place where an important person is in the room, there's a large meeting or a get-together or a meal, and you'd like to meet that person personally, an important person. And if you get to meet them, it is a far more special relationship than if you didn't. I was at a little open house a week ago. I met a couple people that I didn't even know were there. But they came up to me, and someone had, one of them I had done business with before and never met the man. He's the old owner of a business. Never met him. I knew his son. And I said, "I'm so thankful you met me. It's a privilege to meet you. I'm glad to have met you." I'd heard about him, never met him. That was a real blessing to me. To this day, I'm happy about that. And I met a farmer I had heard about, but never met him, and I got to meet him. That was a real blessing. I had heard about these people, but never met them personally. I was very privileged, highly honored that they would want to talk to me face to face, and I'm glad I didn't miss that opportunity. Jesus wanted her to know him, to love him for who he is, and his heart toward her. Notice what he says to her. He is not only giving her the blessing of healing, but now he's giving her the blessing of a personal relationship with him. He says to her, "Daughter, be of good comfort," in verse 48. But daughter, that's a family name. Be of good comfort, a family statement. She is now in God's family. She is not an outsider that needs to hide anymore. Your faith has made you whole. The word whole there is the Greek word sozo, meaning to keep safe, to save, sound, rescue from danger and destruction. This is the technical Bible sense for salvation. The Lord saved her because of her faith. And then he says, "Go in peace." If she left discreetly and hiding the way she came, would she be able to go in peace and live out her days in peace? Would she wonder, what would it have been like if I met him? Would she wonder, did I steal a blessing I didn't deserve? Would she wonder, was that selfish of me? Would she wonder, does God know who I am? None of these questions now would trouble her mind, because Jesus said, I want to meet you, and I want to know you personally. In reality, I believe the second blessing Jesus gave her, the relationship with himself, is better than the healing of the disease. It is not good for us to look for God's blessings and ignore his love. It is not good for us to expect things from him, but ignore our relationship with him. That is a one-sided relationship, and they are never deep or intimate. I think it's instructive for us to seek Jesus on a personal, intimate level, because that's how he seeks you and me. I'll stop there. We'll finish it up next week. We're over time. Thanks for your attention today. Father, we are blessed today by the actions of your Son recorded in Scripture. We learn much about his personal attention, love, and care. We learn much about his closeness and his intimacy and his strong desire to know us personally. He healed this woman before he met her face to face, but would not let her go until she had the privilege of meeting him and becoming one of his own children. Father, what you've done for us through your Son is amazing, and we appreciate the personal relationship you've given to each person in this room who has believed on your Son in faith. Thank you for the blessing we have of knowing you personally and the future we have of living with you personally forever in eternity. We praise you, Lord, for these gifts we receive today from you. In Jesus' name, amen.